Hello everybody, how are you doing? How the devil is everyone doing? Hope everyone is having a good Monday night. I have been balls deep in UFC on ESPN plus 17 research all day, and I thought it would be really cool to research a fight live in this video. So if you're watching this video before UFC Mexico City, Mariano Dhalsim is fighting Claudio Puelles this weekend. But if you are watching it in the future, don't worry, because this research may also help you if you're trying to research a future Mariano Dhalsim fight. Hopefully the stuff we're going to talk about in today's video will help you. Just remember that fighters are continually on a journey of self-improvement. They're always trying to tighten up their weaknesses. They're always trying to get better. So just bear in mind the footage that we are going to be watching and analysing in today's video might have changed quite significantly by the time you come to research this guy. So always make sure you watch a fighter's most recent fights without putting too much weight on older matchups. So what we are going to do in this video, I'm going to take you through my entire research process on a fighter top to bottom. Now I've already researched the guy that Mariano is fighting this weekend. His name is Claudio Puelles. He is from Peru. He has already had 2 fights in the UFC. He is 1-1. I've actually in the last couple of hours finished researching these 2 fights, which I can't show you or else I will get into trouble for copyright infringement, and there is no point in going back and showing you these fights here from back in 2014 because Puelles is only 23 years old. So you know, when these fights took place, he was literally just a teenager, so he will have improved and changed so much since then. So that information is no longer valid. So what we are going to do in this video, we're not going to talk about any of the fights from last weekend. I'll do a recap video for that. We're not going to talk about any of the other fights coming up this weekend. There's plenty of time to get into those throughout the week. In this video, we're going to be focusing on Claudio Puelles and Mariano. And please, if you want me to keep doing these research videos, hit the like button below and also leave a comment to let me know what you think of them. I will be trying to do a few more of these videos this week, so we can do a video for Tyson Nam, who's making his debut, Ariane Canalosi making her debut. Let's see, maybe able to do one on Carlos Joaquin because he's only had 1 fight in the UFC. Should be able to do one on Vanessa Mello as well, and also should be able to do one on Askarov. So we can do a few of these research videos this week. So before we jump into taking a look at the footage, let's look at the state of play, because obviously we don't really care who wins the fight. We're just trying to look at the odds and then review the footage and see if there's a decent opportunity to bet on either guy based on the odds. That's what we're looking for. We're hunting for value. That is the most important thing on our mind right now. So if we look at the odds on this fight at the moment, we can see that Claudio Puelles is around about an average of 1.40, which is minus 250, for an implied probability of 71%. So remember that when we're researching Mariano now, and I will talk a little bit about the threats that Puelles brings to the table, you have to have in your mind, does Puelles have a 76 or better % chance of winning this fight? Because if he doesn't, you have to pass on him. And then if we have a look at the odds on Mariano, and if you're wondering what the Street Fighter intro is all about, his nickname is Dhalsim, after the Street Fighter character that you saw in the intro. So that's what that was all about. But if we look at the odds on Dhalsim, he's currently around, I'll call it, an average of 3.0, which is plus 200 for an implied probability of 33%. So the bookies with these odds are basically saying they cap it at 70-30 in favour of Puelles. And Mariano has had 1 fight in the UFC. He made his debut on short notice, I believe it was short notice, against Lando Vannata, and he is also friends and training partners with Anderson Silva, which you may have seen in the thumbnail. So before we go into watching some footage on Mariano, let me talk to you a little bit about what Puelles brings to the table, so that when we're studying footage of Mariano, you can start to kind of visualize, where you cap this fight and if you see any value on either guy. So Claudio Puelles He's one of these guys, if we check out, actually we can bring up his Instagram profile here. If we bring up his Instagram, we can see that, doesn't post that much, which is a little bit frustrating, because the first thing that we're looking for on this card is what these fighters have been doing over the last few months or last few weeks, because this fight is taking place in Mexico City at altitude. And if you've been watching the UFC for a long time, you've watched their cards in where was it? Was it South Dakota? We've got cards in Denver or Colorado, and cards in Mexico City and Peru. Whenever you get cards at high altitude, it really does affect the fighters. It tests their cardio, and it makes it much harder for them to fight at a high pace without gassing out significantly. On these fight cards that take place at altitude, like Mexico City will be at altitude, even fighters with great cardio can gas out, let alone fighters with poor cardio. So if ever you've seen a fighter gas out in the past, just know that if they're competing on an event at altitude, it's extremely likely that they will gas out even worse than you've ever seen before. And that will be a big topic of discussion when we're researching these fights. Just off the top of my head, some of the fighters in the past that have struggled with their cardio: Sahara Eubanks, Angela Hill. Any others? Not really, but Sahara Eubanks and Angela Hill, definitely two fighters that you definitely do not want to be betting this weekend with this card being at altitude. So one of the things that is a big part of my research whenever we're dealing with a card at altitude is to find out what the fighters have been doing to prepare for this event, because you can't just show up on fight week and expect to be able to perform to your full potential at altitude. Even if you go weeks or even a month in advance, it's not enough for some people to get climatized to competing at high altitude. Sports, what do you call them? Sports scientists say that you need at least a month to let your body climatize and adjust to competing at high altitude. And usually fighters, when they go to compete at an event, they only turn up on the Monday before the event, which means they've only got 5 or 6 days before they compete, and that is nowhere near enough time to climatize. So a really big edge we can already gain over the betting sites is making it a huge part of our fight research to try and identify what the fighters have been doing over the last few weeks. Have they gone out to train at Mexico City a few weeks or even a month in advance? I know that Jeremy Stevens, he's been in Mexico City for 6 weeks preparing for this high altitude. Obviously, he's in the main event against Jair Rodriguez, but these lesser known fighters throughout the card, where we make our money, it's very difficult to make money on main event fights because they tend to be capped so accurately because there's so many eyeballs in it on them. Our bread and butter is in the prelims on these small fight night cards, and a big way, like I say, we can get an edge over the bookie is by working out what these fighters have been doing to prepare for competing at altitude and trying to work out which ones have prepared correctly and which ones haven't. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, if it's a well-known fact that altitude significantly impacts a fighter, why aren't all the fighters going out and preparing a month in advance? Why aren't the UFC, paying for these guys to go out early? And the truth is, these guys really don't get paid that much. I mean, if you look at the majority of fighters competing on this card, they're going to be earning, less than minimum wage in some cases. Most of these guys on this card are on entry-level UFC contracts, earning $10,000 to show up and fight, and then they get a $10,000 win bonus if they win. But if you're only competing once or twice a year, and you're making $10,000, $20,000 a year after taxes, after food, after training, after you pay your rent, there's literally nothing left. So the reason why these fighters can't go out and train in Mexico City early and prepare is because the UFC only pay for flights and accommodation for fight week. So if the fighters do want to go out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks in advance, they can't afford to because they don't earn enough from fighting to support themselves over there. So the majority of these guys are just going to have to roll the dice, go over there and just hope that they can show up and win. Now, obviously, buried on this card. There are going to be some fighters that have earned decent money over the years. I would imagine Sergio Pettis has gone out to Mexico City early training. I'd imagine Angela Hill has done the same, especially because she trains with Jeremy Stevens at Alliance MMA. So maybe they've been able to share some of the costs in taking trainers and cornermen over there, because they'd be sharing the same cornermen and trainers. Maybe they've got an Airbnb or something over there. Train at the same gym might make it easier. Girls like Alexa Grasso, Carla Esparza, Brandon Moreno's got a lot of fight night bonuses. You'd expect those guys to kind of go out early, Yair Rodriguez, but as you get lower down the card, certainly not at all. So that's one thing we're going to be looking out for in all these videos this week. And as you can see, unfortunately, Claudio Puelles hasn't really posted that much. There aren't really any clues as to what he's been doing. What you want to see is kind of like training pictures of him in Mexico City, or any reference to him being in Mexico. And it doesn't really look like there's anything here, so we don't know how Claudio Puelles is preparing for this fight. What I would say is that he is from Peru. Many parts of Peru are high altitude, so he might just be used to it. If we check his record, has he competed on a high altitude card before? We can see he's got plenty of fights in Peru. This fight took place in Chile. Chile might have been high altitude. So he has fought in Mexico City before. So at least Claudio Puelles has some experience competing at high altitude on that previous card against Martin Bravo in his UFC debut. So at least he's going to know what to expect. Now, we don't know if Puelles has obviously gone out to Mexico City to prepare early. We do know he's competed there in the past, though, so he knows what to expect. We also know that if he's from Peru, he's probably used to a high altitude climate. So even though, we can't fully tick the box, it ain't bad. You know what I mean? There are some clues that he will be prepared for the altitude, because he's got experience fighting under it before, and he is from Peru. But if we go on to Marcos Mariano, now Mr. Mariano, Dhalsim, keeps a bit of a low profile. His Instagram profile has been deactivated. I was trying to find it earlier on, and it is not available. But his Facebook profile is still available. The only problem is he hasn't posted since June the 9th, so we have no idea how he's preparing for this fight. Although what I thought was quite amusing is that he's got his phone number on there, so we could give him a call to find out where he is at the moment. I'm certainly not going to do that to him, but I'm sure there are some sickos out there who would call him out and be like, "Hey Dhalsim, where you at, bro? Training in Mexico yet?" His number's on there if you want to give him a bell, boys, but I think I'll give that a miss. So, in terms of preparation for this fight, it's fair to say Puelles is probably going to be better prepared than Mariano. Can't make, what they say, assumption's the mother of all fuck-ups, but at the end of the day, making money from betting's all about working with incomplete sets of information, trying to make the best decision possible with all the information we've got available to us. And in the war of preparation, it appears Puelles has more going for him than Dhalsim does. So what we're going to do now is jump into some fight footage. Actually, before we jump into fight footage, it might be a good idea to tell you a little bit about what Puelles brings to the table. So, he's very young at 23 years old. He will also be giving up a pretty decent size advantage here. Dhalsim is 6'2" with a 76-inch reach, so he should tower over Puelles, who is 5'11" with only a 72-inch reach. What I would say, though, is Dhalsim has a bad case of chicken legs, which you will see in just a little bit. Obviously, 6'2" is huge for a lightweight, but it's all upper body. There's nothing on going down below. So Claudio Puelles is a bit of a jack of all trades. One of these guys that's okay at everything, not particularly great or good at anything. With Puelles, what I would say is his striking defense is very bad. Doesn't really have any power in his hands, and he has slowed down quite a bit in his last two fights. But the way I look at this is, can't be too harsh on him for slowing down against Martin Bravo, because it was his UFC debut. It was a fight at Mexico City against a Mexican at altitude, which is obviously going to be a tricky task. And then in his last fight against Felipe Silva, he did take quite a bit of damage. He did slow down, though. What I would say is, this fight's at altitude. Puelles has slowed down in his last 2 fights. So for me, his cardio is like a big question mark. This is not a fighter that you would trust to be able to show up and perform to the best of their full potential for 3 rounds. He has slowed down in his last 2 fights. His striking defense also is very, very poor. He eats a lot of clean, hard shots. He's been rocked multiple times in his last 2 fights in the UFC. But what I would say, which is significant about this matchup, after what I've just said, you're probably asking yourself, well, if his cardio is questionable and if his striking defense is really poor and he lacks the power in his hands to hurt his opponents offensively with strikes, why is this guy a very big favourite? You know, he carries an implied probability of 1.40. 71% at 1.40. Well, the reason being, and you'll see this in a minute, Marcos Mariano has absolutely no takedown defense and absolutely no ground game at all. And Claudio Puelles, he's not the strongest offensive wrestler. It's not like he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu phenom or anything, but he does always try to take his opponents down, and he can handle himself on the ground. You can see here he won by knee bar in his last fight. He's got a couple submission wins on his record. So just bear that in mind when you're going into this fight. You know, if you see Mariano as a big underdog, you're considering betting on him, just remember his ground game is very bad. Puelles does have some level of grappling, and quite often with a guy like Mariano, some level of grappling is all you're going to need to be able to pick up a win. But now let's go into analysing some of Dhalsim's recent fights. So obviously we can't watch this one because it's copyright protected under the UFC. Couldn't find this fight available online. Please let me know if you could find it. So we are going to watch this fight against Alan Francis from back in 2017. So at this point, it is worth saying that even though this was only 3 fights ago, it was 2 years ago now. So it's very, very possible that Marcos Mariano might have improved significantly since this fight. But what I can tell you is when he made his UFC debut 5 months ago, against Lando Vannata, his takedown defense and ground game was still extremely poor. So let's just jump in and take a look. Let's mute this. So this is Marcos Mariano against Alan Francis. Mariano is this guy here, the Anderson Silva looky-likey, and his opponent, Mr. Francis, is in the black shorts. And let me know, guys, if you have got any questions as the fight is going on. I'll keep an eye on the live chat, and I will answer any questions you've got. So, straight away, we see the chicken legs on display here from Marcos Mariano, which is, you know, clearly showing you how he's able to make this lightweight limit, you know, not carrying much weight in his lower body at all. Throwing some feints out there, but you can see he's got like a nice wide base. Very, very big for the division, and let's see if he can use this length, because he certainly appears to be a long fighter. He's fighting out of the orthodox stance, and his opponent, already noticing that he's got skinny old legs, is throwing an outside leg kick out there to try and chop him down. Dhalsim answering with the jab. But remember, what we're really trying to gauge is if we know Puelles has bad striking defense, and we know also that he doesn't really lack too much power in his hands, if we know that Puelles has a pretty big advantage when it comes to grappling, what we're trying to gauge here is what can Marcos Mariano get going in the stand-up, because this guy that he's fighting here has a pro record of 9-4. Obviously, he's not going to be anything special. So Puelles does have bad striking defense, but is Mariano skilled enough to make him pay? Now, he's certainly moving very well. Certainly moving very well indeed. But so far hasn't really thrown too much at all. Has not thrown much. Taking control of the centre of the octagon though. And it's still very early in the fight. He's got to find his range. I do like his jab though. Got a very, very nice range finding jab. And we just saw with that 2-strike combo that he threw there. Very, very fast hands. And he's also done a reasonably good job of slipping that leg kick on the 2 or 3 occasions that Alan has thrown it. But really, what I'm seeing is a kickboxer that moves very well. I mean, beautiful body kick that he threw out there. A a kickboxer that moves very well, trains with Anderson Silva. Certainly with the way that he carries his hands, you can see a bit of that Anderson influence in there. But you would want a guy like this that moves this good, with a size advantage like this, to be lighting this guy up like a Christmas tree. Should be setting the Brazilian regional circuit on fire. And here we see his takedown defense tested for the first time. Allen is in on a deep body lock takedown here. We just pause it a sec so you can see what is going on. He's got full control of his body here with his hands connected around Marcos's body. And also you see here, see how he's got his right leg in on the other side of Dhalsim's left leg. This is very, very bad for Dhalsim, because what this means is, having full control of his body, Allen can now shift his body weight to the right and complete this body lock takedown. What Dhalsim needed to do in this position was create a wide base and keep his left leg super tight to this cage, so that Allen couldn't get his right leg round the back of him to complete this trip takedown. I don't know what's going to happen here, but if I was a betting man, which I am, I would bet that Mariano's about to go for a ride here and get taken down. He's in a very, very bad position. Let's see what happens. So now he's got his leg in a better position. Notice how he's got it out of danger. But what you are going to see is Allen once again try and slip this right leg around the back. There he goes. Remember, I haven't seen this fight, guys. And there we go. Exactly what we predicted would happen happened. The body lock takedown after Allen was able to gain full control of his body and get that right leg on the outside of Marcos Mariano's left leg to upset his balance. Now we get to see a little bit of his ground game here. So first of all, very, very poor takedown defense from Marcos Mariano. Extremely poor takedown defense. And we've got Allen in his, believe it's full guard. Can't quite see from this camera angle, and the referee standing in the way. I believe Allen might be in half guard actually. Yeah, looks like his legs in half guard. Yes. So as we can see, I mean, Marcos Mariano just allowing Allen to completely advance his position here. And Allen has mounted this guy like he's never even taken a jiu-jitsu class. Don't forget that when they hit the ground, Allen was in half guard. He might have even landed to the ground in Mariano's full guard. And within 20 to 30 seconds, he advanced into side control and then into mount. Mariano had absolutely no idea how to defend himself. And here, looking extremely weak off his back. So all kinds of red flags for Dhalsim here. Decent movement. Looks the business standing. Great movement. Fights very long. Good technique. But they were on their feet for a good 2 minutes. And wow, that's a huge mistake. I've got to bring that back there. So we know that Dhalsim has got decent kickboxing, but is he a dog that's got all bark and no bite? Does he look the part? Or has he got the weapons to make his opponents pay? Because didn't really land anything too significant on Allen. A few nice jabs, a nice body kick, but that was about it. And on the ground, we can see he's at an extremely low level, but he actually gets out of jail here. He actually gets lucky because his opponent makes a huge positional mistake. I mean, this is the most dominant position in MMA here. You've got your opponent mounted. He clearly has no idea how to defend himself off his back. So this is the point in time where you need to be raining down ground and pound, looking for that stoppage, or at least trying to force him into giving his back up so you can bait him into giving the back up to go for the rear naked choke. But here you can see his opponent has an absolute nightmare. Thought it would be a better idea to roll for a mounted triangle or something instead, and somehow Allen actually lets Mariano off the hook here and ends up on the bottom. I don't know what was going through his head, thinking that a mounted triangle would be a good idea from that position after he didn't really attempt to throw any ground and pound. But at least here we get an opportunity to see a little bit of Mariano's top game, even though he was absolutely gifted this position. And now Allen, trying to be active off his back, was threatening with an armbar there. But Mariano staying heavy from top position in Allen's full guard. Let's just skip ahead a little bit here because it is the end of the round. Now we go into round two. They're back on their feet. Get to see a little bit more of Mariano striking. Now will he be a little bit more flat-footed after carrying his opponent's weight for 2 or 3 minutes there? Will he be a little bit more reluctant to let his hands go? Threaten with some spinning shit there. But what we really want to see, I mean, this guy's clearly in a lot of trouble standing up, so needs to get his punches and kicks going now, needs to get his striking game off, showing this guy too much respect, hasn't really landed anything, needs to gain some respect in there. Let's see what he can do to give us some clues as to how the stand-up might go against Claudio Puelles. So again, just like in the first round, taking control of the centre of the octagon, lots of feints, good movement, looks the part. At the moment, no output though. Absolutely nothing. Just getting into a staring contest. And I know he hasn't had much time to find his range. He got taken down early in the first round. But you got to get something going. Threw a nice right hand there. But it's kind of like, guess the stage where his opponent's expecting it. Because there's a lot of feints without any end product. And then he's kind of like throwing naked strikes. And again, Alan's able to gain control of his body extremely easily, and exactly the same technique. You saw him do it there, happen very quickly. He gets his right leg on the outside of Mariano's left leg and takes him down. This time again, looks like it's going to be straight into half guard, and goes for the Dagestani handcuffs, the wrist control, and just to drag him away from the cage really, so that Mariano couldn't use the cage to quickly pop back up to his feet, and straight away Mariano again looking very weak off his back, his shoulders flattened out on the canvas, just completely helpless off his back. And let's see what Alan gets going here. So a little bit of time top control. Here we can see after spending some time in half guard, looks like he's going to try and get his left leg free and advance into mount here. He's going to get it easily, just like he did in the last round. Okay, he stepped over into side control. I'm guessing from how easily he was able to mount Mariano in the first round, I'm guessing he's going to be able to get this again here. The cage is making it a little bit more difficult for him, because notice how Mariano's left leg is posted on the cage. That makes it a little bit more difficult for Alan to step over, because now Mariano has realised he needs to keep this left leg up to avoid being mounted. And if Alan tries to push this down to complete mount, it's going to be more difficult for him because the cage is blocking it. But let's see what he does. With how bad Mariano looked on the ground the first round, wouldn't surprise me at all if Alan's easily able to drag him away from the cage, which he did there. Notice how Alan got his body further in between the cage and Mariano, and now has separated Mariano from the cage in half guard, and now he's gonna. You can see he wants to work towards mount. He's thinking about it, and I mean, Mariano has no control. Absolutely no control of Alan's left leg here. Nothing. He can take mount here. Just need to push down on the right leg and step over. But you're safer from half guard. Less chance of a reversal. There he goes. He takes mount. No, he doesn't. He actually stepped over the half guard on the other side. That is just taking the piss. That is just totally taking the piss. To be able to do that, at the end of the day, fighters should be fighting for their life to stop you from mounting them. And Mariano's guard game is so weak, his opponent was able to step over to the opposite side half guard, and now he's taken mount. Absolutely no problem. Absolutely no problem. All kinds of bad. Absolutely all kinds of bad, boys. He's inside control now. I mean, Alan's just floating all over this guy, doing whatever he wants to do to him. And he's just going to roll for an armbar here. Is he going to get it? It's hard watching this, boys. Guys like this shouldn't be in the UFC. And that's it. That's the armbar. You know what, boys? I was planning to watch this fight from Thunder Fight 6 between Marco Dhalsim and Cicero Coutinho from back in 2016. But I don't see the point. I don't want to waste your time. You can't bet a guy like this. It is 2019. You can't compete in the UFC and survive with a ground game as bad as this. It's just not possible. So, you can't bet this guy. But at the same time, do you really want to put your money on Claudio Puelles, a 23-year-old that has gassed out in his last two fights? Doesn't really have any power in his hands. You know, not the strongest offensive wrestler. I mean, he's certainly got the ground game to dominate Marco Dhalsim. Anyone in the UFC has, based on what we've just seen, right? But at the end of the day, to gain any value on Puelles at all, you've got to give him a 76% or better chance of winning. And the problem is, when you get into capping a fighter in that territory, you're basically saying they've almost got no way to lose. Now, say for example, Dhalsim finally, after his last fight, thought, I've had enough of getting taken down and humiliated like this, because he actually got dropped there. Oh, this is actually getting spicy. So I'm into mount. Obviously, he gets mounted again. What I was just about to say was, if Dhalsim is sick of being dominated on the ground and humiliated, maybe he's been working really hard on his takedown defense in the last 6 months. And in the last 6 months, a strong, explosive, powerful guy like this, that could create a decent wide base against the cage, he could be difficult to take down against a guy like Puelles without any offensive wrestling. So the problem is, based on what we're seeing, you might entertain a bet on Puelles, but what I'm trying to say to you is, the intangible is, could Mariano Dhalsim improve his takedown defense enough to cause Puelles a problem? It is possible, because Puelles isn't the strongest offensive wrestler, but based on what we've seen, he's very, very bad, right? But for me, the bookies have got this fight pretty much accurate. They cap it 70-30 in favour of Puelles, and I tend to agree with them. Let me know what you think in the chats, guys. Let me know what you think, and I am going to have a little read back through the comments, see if there's any questions here. If you do have any questions about this fight, boys, leave a question in the live chat and I will get to you in just a minute. I will just skip through. Hey Joe, how you doing? You okay? My wife is away with work. She's left a comment. How you doing? She's in Brighton. Hope you're enjoying the video. I have no idea why you were watching this shit instead of Netflix, but thank you, Babs. Any questions? And please, guys, if you do like the video, if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the like button below and leave a comment if you can. Let me know what you think. Should be putting out another 4 or 5 videos like this week with all the debutants we've got. So Daniel Wright has said, James Lynch, who is a really good MMA journalist, one of the better ones, James Lynch has said the Sahara Eubank's been training in Mexico City at altitude for the last few weeks. Thanks a lot for that, Dan. Appreciate the info, brother. Let's see. That looks like it is going to be it, boys. No questions. No problem, boys. So what I am going to do in just a little bit, I am going to do, well, very soon I'm going to do a UFC on ESPN Plus 16 recap video where I go over my results from the weekend and go back through all the fights, let you know what I think of them. I might bang on a video game. I'm not going to do the Xbox because last week it was fucking hard to talk and play games at the same time. I'm going to bang a strategy game on or something. James Smith, what do you think of Red Bull Salzburg game coming up? I actually have a parlay, mate. I have a double. I've got Salzburg and Inter to win, and the odds are around about 2.05, which is plus 105. So yeah, I've got Salzburg and I have got Inter. Yes, I will be doing a Premier League betting video, Reese. The irony of gambling, right? So last weekend I had 3 bets on the Premier League. I had double chance Leicester City, double chance Burnley. Both teams are scoring, Wolves and Chelsea. My most confident bet out of the three was Leicester double chance by a mile. And out of the three, that was the bet that lost. And the two I was less confident in won, which is just the irony of it, right? It's gambling, but roughly broke even over the three bets. So it's all good in the end. I'm just very surprised that Leicester didn't get anything out of the game. And I think I might have saved myself some money because I actually slept through the game to prepare for live betting on the UFC. Because when I saw the team sheets and I saw the side that Man United fielded, it was so weak. I might even have added more money to Leicester straight. So I'm glad I was in bed to avoid that and dodge that bullet. Oh, Joe, you're still up. Go to bed, you crazy person. I'm gonna sign off now because she has got to be in work in like 7 hours. I won't keep her up all night. So, nice one, guys. I will be back very soon with a recap video. Take care, everyone, and hit the thumbs up button, hit the like button if you want me to do more of these research videos, and also please leave a comment below. Take care, everyone. Love you guys, and I will see you all very, very, very soon. Take care, everyone. Bye.